from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, entitled The History of the Life of Ajamila. Text number 33. Kasyava kuta ayataha asmadasya nishedhatha kim deva upadevaya uyam kim siddha sattamaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. Dear sirs, whose servants are you? Where have you come from? And why are you forbidding us to touch the body of Ajamila? Are you demigods from the heavenly planets? Are you sub-demigods? Or are you the best of devotees? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The most significant word used in this verse is Siddha Sattamaha, which means the best of the perfect. In Bhagavad Gita 7.3, it is said, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Out of millions of persons, one may try to become siddha, perfect, or in other words, self-realized. A self-realized person knows that he is not the body but a spiritual soul, Aham Brahmasmi. At the present moment, practically everyone is unaware of this fact. But one who understands this has attained perfection and is therefore called Siddha. When one understands that the soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, and one thus engages in the devotional service of the Supreme Soul, one becomes Siddha Sattama. One is then eligible to live in the Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. The word Siddha Sattama therefore refers to a liberated, pure devotee. Since the Yamadutas are servants of Yamaraj, who is also one of the Siddha Sattamas, they knew that a Siddha Sattama is above the demigods and sub-demigods, and indeed above all the living entities within this material world. The Yamadutas therefore inquired why the Vishnudutas were present where a sinful man was going to die. It should also be noted that Ajamila was not yet dead, for the Yamadutas were trying to snatch the soul from his heart. They could not take the soul, however, and therefore Ajamila was not yet dead. This will be revealed in later verses. Ajamila was simply in an unconscious state when the argument was in progress between the Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas. The conclusion of the argument was to be a decision regarding who would claim the soul of Ajamila. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. So the background for this verse is that the Yamadutas have come to take Ajamila to Yamaraj. And exactly at that time, Ajamila, what did he do? What did he do? He didn't say Narayana. He shouted! He cried! Narayana! Why did I shout? Let us not forget that we have to call out the Supreme Lord in a helpless condition. If we are chanting in a materially satisfied way, that everything is all right with us, we are also doing this chanting, then that call does not attract the personal attention of the Supreme Lord. The best example is, in this regard, Draupadi. When she was being insulted or attempted to be insulted in that assembly where the gambling match is going on. So at that time, she appealed to different elders in the assembly that elders are supposed to protect chaste women from being insulted in that way. But when her appeal failed, she helplessly called out, Govinda. She helplessly called out Govinda. So immediately Krishna responded. Nobody else came to help her. But just once, helplessly, she called out Krishna's name. And immediately Krishna responded. So Ajamila helplessly called out Narayana. And therefore, immediately Narayana responded. He sent his order carriers, Vishnudutas. So immediately Vishnudutas appeared on the spot. Immediately. You should always remember that the Supreme Lord and His pure devotees are not within the purview of material time and material space. They are always beyond the purview of eternal time and eternal space. So for them, neither space is a limitation nor time is a limitation. Anytime they are ready. Anywhere they are ready to go. So Srila Prabhupada explains about the position of Yamaraj. He is also one of the Siddha Sattamas. Here, the Yamadutas are inquiring from these Vishnudutas who have stopped the Yamadutas from claiming Ajamila's soul. So they're telling stop. So they are asking, these Yamadutas are asking, why are you interfering with our duty? We have come to claim the soul of this sinful Ajamila. And we never been stopped earlier. This never happened earlier that somebody stopped us. Our jurisdiction is over sinful people. And this Ajamila is a sinful man, so we come to take him to Yamaraj. So why are you stopping us? So then further, they are asking, who are you? Because these Vishnudutas, their description will be given in the next few verses. They were appearing very, very bright, brilliant, beautiful. Say they look like gentlemen. The best of gentlemen, not just gentlemen. So, are you some demigods from higher planets or sub-demigods? Or are you the best of devotees? They are asking, are you the best of devotees? Because they are not being stopped by demigods or sub-demigods earlier. So they can't be demigods who are stopping or sub-demigods who are stopping them. They have to be somebody other than demigods or sub-demigods. So who else can stop the Yamadutas? If at all somebody can stop them, it is the pure devotees who are beyond the jurisdiction of the demigods, the Yamadutas, beyond all living entities within this entire material world, material creation. So, pure devotees, as the Supreme Lord is beyond space and time, similarly, pure devotees are beyond space and time. So, they can immediately appear wherever required on the order of the Supreme Lord. They can appear immediately, in any place, at any time, immediately. So they cannot be obstructed in their performance of the duty. That's why the Bhagavatam says the characteristic of pure devotional service is that it is ahaituki apratihata. It does not depend on any material arrangements, material conditions. Apratihata, it cannot be obstructed at any time. There's no consideration of time, place, circumstances, arrangements, favorable situation, nothing like that. For devotional service, there is no need of, for pure devotional service, there's no need of any favorable situation. That's how Srila Prabhupada went to America, and even amidst hippies, he chanted Hare Krishna and engaged them also in chanting Hare Krishna, chanting and dancing. Because Prabhupada is on the platform of pure devotional service. So there is no need for any favorable situation. He doesn't have to look at time, proper time, nothing. Any time, any place, any person. So therefore, pure devotional service is the activity of the soul proper. The activity of the soul. And it is independent of time, place, circumstances. Completely independent of all that. So, the lesson for us is that we have been instructed and we have taken vows, at least those who have taken Diksha, initiation, we have taken vow that every day we will chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna. So sometimes we devotees may wonder, when I am sick, I may not be able to chant. Actually, even when you are sick, you can chant. You just have to not consider the condition of the body. You should not be so much concerned with the place. Supposing somebody is admitted to hospital for some treatment. So lying on the hospital bed, cannot sit up, cannot walk. Doesn't matter, lying down. Chant Hare Krishna. What is required is that the consciousness not be associated with hospital, bed, sickness, bodily condition, I not taken bath. No, don't associate yourself or your real consciousness with all those. When engaging in devotional service, the consciousness has to be associated with devotees, temple. So that's why we have a faculty that in our mind, at least, in our present condition, mentally we can transport ourselves out of the hospital, out of the present condition to the temple. You just think you are in the temple because you have memory of having, or wherever you are experienced or used to chanting, which is so-called favorable. You think, oh, if I were in the temple, I could have nicely chanted. Now in the hospital bed, how can I chant? So you transport mentally yourself to that favorable situation. And you just chant. If you can't chant loudly, chant softly. If you can't chant softly, chant in your mind. If you can't chant in the mind also, remember you're having chanted formerly. There should be some endeavor by the real soul, to call out Krishna, chant Krishna's name. That endeavor is your devotional service. Now the result of that endeavor, whether actually some sound comes out or doesn't come, that doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter. But your endeavor is very, very important. Not your endeavor to come up with excuses why you cannot chant. Generally, when somebody cannot do some work that is assigned, or some task or some responsibility, then they come with excuses why they cannot do. So as devotees, we should always engage our intelligence in how to endeavor to do devotional service under all circumstances, at all times, in all places, in all situations. This is Buddhi Yoga. Intelligence engaged in devotional service. This is Buddhi Yoga. We all have intelligence. It's only because we have intelligence we come up with so many excuses why I cannot chant. Is it not? So why don't you engage the same intelligence in endeavoring to chant in spite of so many apparent difficulties? Yes, it's not easy to chant, I admit. It's accepted. It's difficult. But put your endeavor to chant even in a difficult situation. Whatever best you can do, try. Try to chant. And Krishna will respond Immediately Krishna's response is there. Each one of the devotees has to himself or herself make this attempt. And you will see miracles happen in this way in a devotee's life. This is the miracle for a devotee. Not some display of some mystic power or some material perfection. No. That is useless for a devotee. Devotee's attempt should be, under all circumstances, at all times, I want to chant Hare Krishna. At least let me make the endeavor to call out Krishna. So, just like Ajamila, somehow he called out at the time of death the name of the Supreme Lord. So immediately the Lord responded. Immediately. So this is a 100% fact that if we endeavor to even call, of course Ajamila did call the Supreme Lord. Supposing somebody is not actually able to call out, still, you make the endeavor and Krishna is there. Either Krishna comes or he sends his representatives, he does something to deliver you. Whatever, he will do something. That is guaranteed. As I said, there is no limitation for them as to time, place, circumstances, person. There is no limitation. Whoever it is, whoever calls out, whoever endeavors to call even, Krishna comes, Krishna responds. So the Vishnudutas are here and they are stopping. So the Vishnudutas are being questioned by the Yamadutas. Are you the best of devotees? Siddha Sattamaha. So Srila Prabhupada is explaining this word Siddha Sattamaha means the best of the perfect. Siddha means perfect, literal meaning. But in this context, especially in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 7th chapter, the 3rd verse, Lord Krishna says, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. So, the translation of this verse, 7.3, Srila Prabhupada says, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. What does this perfection refer to? Siddhaye, endeavor for yatati siddhaye, endeavor for perfection. So this perfection refers to self-realization. That's what is told here. Out of millions of persons, one may try to become siddha, perfect, or in other words, self-realized. Now, what is the connection between perfection and self-realization? How can siddhi refer to self-realization? For that, we have to refer the 18th chapter, where Lord Krishna again makes a reference to siddhi as siddhim vindati manavaha. Where is that verse? Okay. Beginning from the 45th verse, this word siddhi has been used. In the 45th verse, Krishna says, Sve sve karmani abhirataha samsiddhim labhate naraha swakarma nirata siddhim yatha vindati tatshunu. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. Now, please hear from me how this can be done. Siddhim, the word siddhi has been used. Here he says in the next verse, Yata pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana tam abhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. Here also the word siddhi has been used as perfection. By worship of the Lord, who is the source of all beings and who is all pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. And then Krishna goes on to say that better to engage in one's own occupation because prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. And then the next verse he says, in every endeavor there is some sort of fault. So therefore one should not give the work which is born of his nature, even if such work is having some fault. Then he says, one can obtain the results of renunciation simply by self-control and by becoming unattached to material things and disregarding material enjoyments. That is the highest stage, perfectional stage of renunciation. Naishkarmya siddhim paramam sannyasena gacchati. Here sannyasa refers to the perfectional stage of renunciation. One can attain that simply by self-control, becoming unattached to material things and disregarding material enjoyments. Next verse, 50th verse, again he talks about siddhi. He says, Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tathapnoti nibodhame samasenaiva kaunteya nishtha jnanasya yapara. O son of Kunti, learn from me in brief how one can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, by acting in the way which I shall now summarize. So this is the verse, the 50th verse of the 18th chapter is where Krishna describes this perfection as attaining the supreme or self-realization. Realization of the Supreme Self, Brahman. So therefore, and in the next three verses, 51, 52, 53, Krishna describes the process, being purified by his intelligence, controlling the mind with determination, because he said, by self-control, becoming unattached to material things and disregarding material enjoyment. What does it entail? In detail, he says, a little detail, in 51, 52, 53, what one has to do. And he concludes that description by telling, Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who is following these steps is elevated to the position of self-realization. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. He comes to the stage called Brahma Bhuta stage. This Brahma Bhuta stage is already discussed in the 14th chapter. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan Brahma bhuyaya kalpate. So this Brahma Bhuta stage is for those who are engaged in pure devotional service, by which they are able to transcend the three gunas and come to the Brahman platform. Above the three gunas, the spiritual platform, transcendent. So one is able to attain the Brahma Bhuta stage by the prescription here. That is also called the stage of perfection, Siddhi. Therefore, in this 7th chapter, 3rd verse, this word Siddhi which means perfection, refers to self-realization. So, self-realization is the interest of very, very few people among so many human beings. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaya. So many people are engaged as human beings in so many pursuits, but very, very few are interested in pursuit of self-realization. That's what Krishna is telling. And among those who have achieved perfection, yatatam api siddhanam, those who have achieved perfection, that means those who are self-realized, kaschin mam veti tatvataha, hardly one among millions of such self-realized persons knows me in truth. It means knows Krishna in truth. So same thing is explained in the Bhagavatam also. Kotishwapi Mahamune. Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishwapi Mahamune. This is a statement of Parikshit Maharaj, that among millions of mukta purushas, liberated souls, among millions of siddha purushas, perfected beings, self-realized souls, hardly one person may be there who is Narayana Parayana, who is a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord Narayana, who is completely devoted and dedicated for devotional service to Narayana, pure devotional service to Narayana. Such a person, he says, Sudurlabha. He is very, very difficult to find, very rare to find. So, the Yamadutas were quite certain that pure devotees are very rare to find in this whole creation. Of course, they themselves are the servants of the pure devotee Yamaraj. So, Yamaraj actually is a pure devotee. He is not exactly in the category of the universal controllers. He has taken charge of all the sinful living entities to administer properly punishment to them according to the degree of sinful activity. So Srila Prabhupada says Yamaraj lives in the lower planets. Actually, he lives in Patala, Yamaloka, somewhere in Patala. So, devotee, pure devotee, he is simply concerned with devotional, his particular assigned service, that's all. Wherever that service is to be done, he is ready to go. Whatever that service be, he is ready to do. See, Yamaraj actually has nothing to do with sinful people. His only association is that of other devotees. Devotees generally are interested in devotee association. But for the sake of carrying out his assigned duty, he is situated in that lowest of planets. And he has got as his assistants these Yamadutas, through whom he actually carries out his duty. But actually, he is in the category of Siddha Sattama. So it's in the Yamadutas, servants of Yamaraj, who is also one of the Siddha Sattamas. They knew that a Siddha Sattama is above the demigods and sub-demigods, and indeed above all the living entities within the material world. So the point they are trying to make is, if you are the best of devotees, what business you have got with sinful people? What business do you have? So they were surprised that these Vishnudutas had come to a sinful man, to stop them from taking a sinful man to Yamaraj. So therefore they were surprised, and therefore they are asking this question. Now, Ajamila's condition is that if the Yamadutas had taken away the soul, snatched the soul from the heart, then Ajamila would have been taken to Yamaraj. But before they could take away, they were stopped. So, Ajamila was not yet dead. Death means the soul is out of the body. But Ajamila was still within the body because the Yamadutas were stopped by the Vishnudutas. So Ajamila was simply in an unconscious state where the argument was in progress between the Yamadutas and Vishnudutas. So it's a long argument. There's a discussion between the Vishnudutas and the Yamadutas. And Ajamila was fortunate to hear this conversation, this discussion. And Ajamila became enlightened. See the Lord's arrangement. First of all, the Lord arranges to stop the Yamadutas from taking him to Yamaraj. Secondly, the Lord also arranges to enlighten this Ajamila. He had become forgetful. He was engaged in his duty properly for spiritual elevation, but somehow he got distracted and he became almost completely forgetful about his main business, self-realization. And therefore, the Supreme Lord arranged to enlighten him. What is his real business? Not trying to materially enjoy, but strive for self-realization, God realization. So Ajamila was able to hear the conversation and become enlightened. And therefore, it will be described how at the end, when the Yamadutas went away, the Vishnudutas also immediately disappeared. And then Ajamila realized that he had been completely acting in a sinful way, being distracted by his main business, self-realization, and therefore he decided to immediately quit that place, go to a holy place, sacred place, and practice devotional service to become perfect very quickly. So that will be described in the later verses. We'll stop here. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss any updates.